Hello. Chag Sameach, Good Yom Tov. Nice to see everyone. Gmar Chatima Tova. You came on a good night. The cantor and I are wearing matching outfits. It's good to laugh because our experience of Kol Nidre this year is a little bit serious. Every Kol Nidre is serious. It's our day of fasting. It's our holiest day of the year. But it's been a serious year. And what is our response to such times? We gather, we sing, we pray, we pour our hearts out. And in just a few minutes, we will open our ark and begin to take all of our Torahs out, as we always do, the Jews have done for millennia. And we'll recite the Kol Nidre. But before the Kol Nidre, we say a formula. B'yeshiva shamala, b'yeshiva shamata. With the tribunal of the heavens, the earthly tribunal, anu matirin lehitpalel im avar yonim. We declare it permissible to pray with the transgressors, with Jews from every walk of life. It is amazing, but this evening our community right here in River Forest is joined by Jews through the miracle of Zoom on the East Coast, on the West Coast, the Southwest, across the Midwest and Canada, and beginning from a few days ago from Angola, Africa. And so what are we doing here? We're here to pray. We're here to look through the old list of sins. We're here to meet adversity with unity. So let us begin by putting on our telitot, if you haven't put it on yet. It's the only night of the year where we put on a talit. If you'd like to say the bracha with me, it's on page 202. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedishanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehitatef batzitzit. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, ruler of time and space, who has made us holy through mitzvot and instructed us to wrap ourselves in tzitzit. So let us begin our service. We turn to page 203. We have a meditation for the beginning of Yom Kippur on the most left-hand column together. I hereby forgive all who have hurt me, all who have done me wrong, whether deliberately or by accident, whether by word or by deed. May no one be punished on my account. As I forgive and pardon fully those who have done me wrong, may those whom I have harmed by word or by deed forgive and pardon me, whether I acted deliberately or by accident. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, my rock and my redeemer. Please rise on page 204 as we open the ark. Who can understand the source of our errors? Cleanse me of secret faults and restrain your servant from willful sins. May they not control me. Then shall I be innocent of wrongdoing, wholly clear of transgression. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer.
Zaru ala tzadik uleish lev simcha. Or zaru ala tzadik uleish lev simcha. זרו על הצדיק ולאיש חלב שמחה. אור זרו על הצדיק ולאיש לב 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 שמחה. בישיבה של מעלה ובישיבה של מטה, על דעת המקום ועל דעת הקהל, אנו מתירים להתפלל עם העבריינים.
By the authority of the court on high and by the authority of this court below, with divine consent and with the consent of this congregation, we grant permission to pray with those who have transgressed. We turn to page 205 for the Kol Nidre.
Kol Nidre Vesarei Vicharamei Vikonamei Vichinuyei Vikinusei Ushavuot Din darna Udeyishtebana Udeacharimena Many asarna al nafshatana mi Yom Kippurim zeh ad Yom Kippurim haba aleinu Aleinu litova kulhon iachradna vehon kulhon yehon sheran shevikin Shevitin Betelin Umevutalin Lasheririn Vila Kayamin Nidrana La Nidre Yesarana la esare Ushevo אותנו לשבועות.
Please join me in the English on the left-hand side. All vows, renunciations, bans, oaths, formulas of obligation, pledges, and promises that we vow or promise to ourselves and to God from this Yom Kippur to the next, may it approach us for good, we hereby retract. May they all be undone, repealed, canceled, voided, annulled, and regarded as neither valid nor binding. Our vows shall not be considered vows. Our renunciations shall not be considered renunciations, and our promises shall not be considered promises.
Kol Nidre Yesare V'charame V'koname V'chinuye V'kinusei U'shevuot Dindarna U'da'ishtebana U'da'charimna V'riyasarna al nafshatana miyom kippurim zeh ad yom kippurim haba aleinu Aleinu letova kulehon icharadna v'hon kulehon yihon sharan shevikin shevitin betelin umevotalin lasheririn velakayamin nidrana la nidre v'yesarana la esare Shevuatana la Shevuot.
The entire congregation of the people Israel shall be forgiven, as well as the stranger who dwells among them, for all of Eretz.
ונסלח לכל הדת בני ישראל ולגר הגר בתוכם כי לך העם בשגגה סלח נא לבון העם הזה כגודל חסדך וכאשר נשאת לעם הזה ממצרים ועד הנה ושם נאמר
As befits your abundant love, please forgive this people's sin. just as you have always forgiven this people from the time of the Exodus from Egypt until now. And there it further says, Adonai replied, I have forgiven as you have asked.
Vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha. Vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha. Vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
Please be seated. We will now hear from our President, Julie Geldner.
Last year, in my Yom Kippur appeal, I asked the question God asked when seeking Adam and Eve in Bereshit. Ayeka, where are we? Well, it's been a crazy year, as you all know. But again, this year, we rose to the task of answering the question of Ayeka. And we found the answer again in our liturgy. The answer was Hineni. Here we are, and how can we effect change? We need to once again rise to the challenge and ensure our synagogue continues to be what we have all worked so hard to preserve and to grow. This year, like last year, has been difficult, stressful, uncertain. I could probably go on, but I think that's enough words to explain how it was and how all of you felt as well. We are still enduring a global pandemic, trying to convince those that refuse to obtain COVID vaccines not to just benefit themselves, but to do it to benefit the larger community. Over the past year, a dialogue has begun addressing systemic racial injustice. In the past year, Hamas from Gaza bombed Israel and overwhelmed the Iron Dome. Anti-Semitism has increased worldwide, and there has been endless additional losses and disruptions. During these difficult times of stress and uncertainty, we've looked to our families, our loved ones, our friends, and our Har Zion community to give us that touch of spirituality, of hope, and the knowledge that we have each other and our common faith. We know the answer to the question, Ayeka. Hineni. The question is a question for me that repeats itself, and the answer cannot be said enough times. Here we are. How can we affect change? So here at Har Zion, over the last year, we assessed our situation and we took action. With the dedication of Rabbi Glick, Cantor Figa, Charles Shapira, staff and volunteers, we continue to find our way to bring religious services to our community and beyond, both virtually and in person. We have people joining us virtually from Chicago to Indiana, to Oregon, to New Orleans, to Toronto, to Israel, and my personal favorite, to Angola and beyond. In the coming year, we will be offering University 2.0, an amazing variety of virtual programming content wherein every month has a theme, a unique theme, including October, protection, November, self-care, December, Jewish identity, January, relationship with the earth, February, character strengths, March, freedom, April, relationship with Israel, May, relationship with God. We have maintained our treasured daily minyan virtually and our Kabbalat Shabbat services virtually, but we'll soon have our wonderful musical Shabbats begin monthly. Last year, to address COVID, we created a reopening task force led by Jay Michaels. The world was unknown, the situation was unknown, but we knew that we had to do something to get our temple open for business, so to speak, once again. We did that. The temple reopened with all of the necessary COVID protocols in place. We then morphed our reopening task force to our High Holiday Task Force, also led by Jay Michaels, to enable in-person and virtual services. Then, once the state of Illinois moved to phase 5, complete opening, we morphed back to a reopening task force, again, Jay Michaels. And then, of course, when the state took steps to add restrictions due to the Delta variant of COVID, we again morphed and implemented COVID protocols that we currently have in place. I have to say, over the last year, that was really a lot of morphing. And it took a lot of people and a lot of effort to make that happen. And if it wasn't for our congregants, the task would have been unbearable. We opened our preschool for in-person learning following CDC, DCFS, and IDPH regulations, which required a limited number of students per classroom. We were able to, with the amazing efforts of Lori Appleby, our preschool director, and of course, our beloved Claudine Gorelnik, open the preschool for in-person learning this school year. David Schwartz, our religious school director, in coordination with teachers and staff, opened religious school for in-person learning this past Sunday. We had robust programming for our children for Rosh Hashanah. There was programming for young families and youth services in the tent in order to maintain COVID protocols. Thank you to David Schwartz, Claudine Gorelnik, Carol Flank, Rabbi Glick, Cantor Figa, and so many others who made this possible. We will also have a young family and youth service tomorrow, and also for Sukkot. Once again, this year, we created a COVID budget. Many thanks to Ed Sachs. Let me try that again. Many thanks to Ed Schmidt for leading us through the budgeting process. We have had many generous donations throughout the year: our sound system and cameras, funds for replacement of our air conditioning system, funds to support the endowed chairs for the rabbi, cantor, preschool director, religious school, and executive director positions. We also have had donors for some of our programming. None of what we have accomplished this past year could have been done without the hard work of the rabbi and the cantor, as well as David Schwartz and Lori Appleby, Claudine Gorelnik, and Sheila Essig. Also, I would like to acknowledge the continuing work of this executive committee. They are amazing. They work diligently, and we've made some significant changes. And also to thank the board of directors who have worked so hard to move us forward as well. We also couldn't have accomplished all we have this year without Judy Grobe Sachs and, of course, Ed Sachs, our goodbye. I've said this many times over the year, but it certainly bears repeating. Ed, if you can hear me, I think you probably can, the way you've pivoted to be our virtual goodbye has been incredible. Thank you. We also cannot do this, most importantly, without you, our congregants. Although it feels counterintuitive to me to ask for donations on Kol Nidre, but since it's a tradition in most shuls, I ask you to please consider donating. If possible, a little bit. Or a big bit would be fine too. To our Yom Kippur appeal, all of the items and programs I have listed are just not possible without all of your donations. They keep our synagogue running, working day after day, week after week. So I ask, Aika, the answer, again, Hineni. Here we are, and we can make changes. We can make changes by donating to our shul, which we love, and is our spiritual home as well as our community. Thank you very much, and we appreciate all you do for Har Zion.
I would like to thank Julie for her passionate words. What other congregation can claim such a passionate, inspired, and dedicated president? We now would like to continue by showing you some greeting videos from our members.
We're Paul and Judy Wolfman, and we want to wish you a Lashana Tova.
Wishing you much happiness, good health, and peace in the new year. Lashana Tova.
Lashana Tova.
We wish our friends at Temple Online have a sweet new year. Shana Tova.
Happy New Year from the Shea family, Lashana Tova, from Jackie, Dan, Gabriel, and our newest member, Milo Grandcracker Shea. Wishing you an extra sweet new year. We could all use it. Hope to see you soon. Bye.
Let us rise for our Baruch Hu, page 207.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed.
Please be seated and join me in the blessing on the second half of page 207 together on the left-hand side. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, ruler of time and space, whose word brings the evening dusk, whose wisdom opens the gates of dawn, whose understanding changes the day's division, whose will sets a succession of seasons and arranges the stars in their places in the sky, who creates day and night, who rolls light before darkness and darkness from light, who makes day pass into night, who distinguishes day from night. Adonai Tzevaot is your name, living and ever-present God. May your rule be with us forever and ever. Baruch atah Adonai, who brings each evening's dusk.
El Chai V'Kayam Tamid Yimlach Aleinu Leolam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Amariv Aravim. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha. Ahavta Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu lemadeta Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu lemadeta al ken Adonai Eloheinu v'shochbenu uvkumenu nasiach b'chukecha nasiach b'chukecha v'nismach b'divrei toratecha v'nismach b'divrei toratecha toratecha uve'mitzvotecha uve'mitzvotecha leolam vaed leolam vaed ki hem chayenu ויאורך ימינו, ובהם נגי יומם ולילה, כי הם חיינו, ויאורך ימינו, ובהם נגי יומם ולילה, ויאהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל.
We turn to the Shema in the middle of page 208. Only time of year where we say the second line, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed, out loud, as the assembly in the ancient temple on this day of Yom Kippur.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך. In the second section of Shema, page 209, we learn, impress these words of mine upon your heart and upon your soul. Bind them as a sign upon your hand and as a symbol above your eyes. Teach them to your children by speaking of them when you sit in your home, when you walk on your way, when you lie down and when you rise up. Inscribe them upon the doorposts of your home and on your gates. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor. Ani Adonai Elohechem emet.
Please join me for a responsive reading at the bottom of page 209 on the left-hand side. This is our faithful affirmation binding on us, that Adonai is our God and there is none other. And we, Israel, are God's people. God redeems us from earthly rulers. Our sovereign delivers us from the hand of all tyrants. God performs wonders beyond understanding, marvels beyond all reckoning. God exalted us above all those who hated us, avenged us with miracles before Pharaoh, offered signs and wonders in the land of Egypt. As their pursuing enemies drowned in the depths, God's children beheld the power of the divine. Then Moses, Miriam, and the people Israel joyfully sang this song to you.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה, זלינו ויאמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גל ישראל.
Turn to page 211 on the left-hand side responsively. Second bracha after the Shema. Allow us, Adonai our God, to sleep peacefully and to awaken again to life, our sovereign. Shield us, remove from us enemies and pestilence, sword, starvation, and sorrow, and remove the evil forces that surround us. Ensure our going and coming for life and peace now and forever. Baruch atah Adonai, who spreads the canopy of peace over us and over all the people of Israel and over Jerusalem.
ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ברוך אתה אדוני, הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל. ועל ירושלים.
Please rise for the sanctification of the day. We're on page 212, the second paragraph. Please rise.
כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם לפני אדוני תטהרו.
For on this day atonement shall be made for you to purify you from all your transgressions. In the presence of Adonai you shall be pure.
יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה, וילמד דברי קירותי וימליך מלכותי. בחייכון ויומכון וחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגאלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לילה, לילה, מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, V'amiran v'alma v'imiru. Amen.
Our silent Amidah for Kol Nidre begins on page 213, and we continue through to page 221, 213 to 221.
Shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu. Say shalom, shalom, shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, v'yimeru, amen.
Good Yom Tov, Chag Sameach, to all of you here in person, on Zoom, Shana Tova. There was a period in my life, in my mid-20s. I was working as a journalist. I was living in Montreal, Canada. Being a journalist was a career that I had wanted to pursue. In my younger years, I loved to write. And I'd already had a successful run as an intern for a major newspaper, and I had all of the trappings of a person my age. I had friendships, a vibrant life, a relationship, the rhythms of daily life. In Montreal, 2 feet of snow, 5 feet of snow, 10 feet of snow, 10 feet of ice. But I started to feel that there was something missing. That this was not enough, not what I really wanted. That somewhere along the way, I'd lost the sense of my higher aspiration. The presence of sanctity in my life. And I'd lost some of my faith in the direction that somewhere deep inside of me I'd always hoped for my life. But what it was all about, but what values would be at the forefront of it, what my friendships would look like, and what I would be spending my days doing. I went through a process. It took a few years determining what direction to express my life in, what it would look like. And those were very challenging but very joyful years, led me through some unexpected doors. There were changes, there were blessings, a period of contemplation, reflection, where my parents lived at the time in the Pyrenees in southern France. Stint volunteering in Kathmandu for a Jewish organization, Tevel B'Tzedek. A year of study in Jerusalem, the Pardes and Institute. 5 years of rabbinical school, meeting my beautiful wife Rachel, and here I am, Hineni. And it was about finding some kind of aspiration for what my life was about. And it was about, if possible, bringing some type of holiness into my life. And it was about finding a purpose and a meaning. And it was about, in the language of this evening, of Kol Nidre, of rededicating my life. Of rededicating my life and resanctifying my life, beginning anew. And this is Yom Kippur. On our holiest day, why do we begin by bringing all of our Torahs out, dressed in their beautiful white mantles? Why do we invoke the Yeshiva Shamala and the Yeshiva Shamata, the higher tribunal, the lower tribunal? Why do we wear talit at night? Because this is a yearly moment where we can decide to rededicate our lives, our personal lives, our family lives, our community's lives, the Jewish people, our nation, so in need of it, the world, our planet. So before the august members of our shul holding the Torahs, we cancel all of our vows, our renunciations, our bans, our oaths, kol nidre v'sarei, v'charamei, v'konamei, v'chinumei. Our vows shall not be considered vows, our renunciations shall not be considered renunciations, and our promises shall not be called promises. And it's very powerful. Because with all of those held, all of those canceled, in that balance, in that sanctified, sacred space of these walls, we start to look again, to begin to consider, to reshape, and to bring new vitality to old vows and old promises, to find new oaths and new renunciations, to rededicate all of it, to re-sanctify all of it. We retie the knot. So before Yom Kippur, the greeting that we say is Gmar Chatima Tova, right? May you have a good sealing. What are we sealing? What is the day of sealing? We are resealing our lives. Resealing our lives with more purpose. Resealing our lives with more meaning. Resealing our lives with aspiration, with holiness for what lies ahead. As we've discovered over the past few years, we never know what lies ahead. On this night, our questions are, how do I make my life more sanctified? What can I bring in that was not there before, that will lift me up and inspire me for the year ahead and make me feel I'm living closer to where I need to be? There is a newish member of our congregation who loves music and who made it their lives, and they came very, very close to stardom, real stardom. But they didn't, life happened, and they had to make a living. So they went into IT, not what they wanted to do. But one day they decided to get back into music, teaching and playing when possible, and their whole life is energized with that decision to live as they want, not as someone else said that they should be living. And re-sanctifying our families. What can we bring to our families, to our children, to our grandchildren that will help us as a unit be everything we know that we can be? So many intentions that we have throughout the years are lost, forgotten, abandoned. What is a simple ritual or moment that we can bring into those relationships to shift the routine into a new direction, to help everyone find their place within the whole? I know a family where one of the children, now a young adult, suffers from autism, and the father, who is an incredibly successful and accomplished and busy person, has a ritual. Every week they live by the ocean, by the Pacific, and every week, without fail, even in the winter time, the Pacific is not a warm ocean, he takes his son out and they spend 45 minutes in the waters together, even when it's freezing cold, to have that time together. Or another family I know where the children are now middle-aged, and for the first time ever, the whole family decided to do joint therapy with a spiritually minded therapist, simply to go back and to try and find that place where the wholeness and the holiness and the unity were eroded. To add a new celebration. We all know those couples who redo their marriage vows after a number of years, 30, 40, 50, and invite all of their friends and mark how life has changed and rededicate their relationship from the new place. Or on this night, we sanctify the lives of our Jewish people in America, who in the past several decades have really been through profound changes in what we look like, who we are, what it means to be a Jew. As this year's Pew Report showcased, right, the last Pew Report sent out waves of fear throughout Jewish institutions. At this point, people know what the Pews are saying. There are even more Jews who are not affiliated, not religious, but spiritual, and they're religious but not spiritual. And everything is changing. What we are looking for and what do we want from religious life, 40 years ago, it all made sense. I remember attending a seminar where a rabbi was teaching an incredibly complex and sophisticated method of community organizing, any way to get Jews to walk in through the doors and participate in Jewish life. And I thought it must be simpler than that. If we want Jews to come, we have to find what they want. And if we do find what they want, they will come. We've jumped through so many hopes to try and revive our movement. Is what we're doing still sanctified? 50 years ago, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel said, synagogues are the graveyards of our prayers. Is that still the case? That's why, after the holidays here at Har Zion, we're going to begin a one-year intensive course on prayer. Once a month, I will teach the big ideas of prayer, why pray by yourself or in a minyan, how to deal with ideas we do not connect to. The cantor will speak about how to navigate the liturgies of life cycles of different services. David Schwartz, our Director of Education, will speak about connecting to different prayers within our liturgy. Twice a month we'll have prayer book Hebrew level 2 that will be taught by one of our members, Courtney Black. Because we would like to ensure that our synagogue is not the graveyard of your prayers. And every Jewish community right now, at this moment in time, is wondering how to rededicate its worship to fit where people are right now, its community, its ways of thinking and transmitting belief, and how we do transform what the Pew said is the strongest part of Jewish identity, cultural identity, Jewish foods, visiting historical sites, even connection to Israel, despite what everybody is saying, is still very, very high. How do we translate that also to deeper meaning and purpose that holds and that vitalizes? How do we believe after the Shoah? What does it mean for us now? And how can we have communities where people spend hours praying but do not believe? It makes little sense. But how can we re-sanctify without going back to God as a godfather, as a grandfather in the sky? In a vastly more interconnected world where we're so much freer than Jews have ever been and so much more respected, although the last few years have been worrying among the nations and people of the world, what does it mean to do what we've always done? And how do we re-sanctify Judaism so it appeals to our children and grandchildren, not out of guilt, but because they truly find that when they come and take part in this life, they gain something, some wisdom, some energy, some vitality. How do we heal from all of our internal divisions? How do we re-sanctify our conservative movement? To address that, we might have to be here all night. Our movement is shrinking. Only 8% of those who are 18 to 29 identify as conservative. 8%. What are we about? What is our purpose? A few years ago, I was at a conference for rabbis where we were being led to create the bumper sticker for the conservative movement. And I thought, before you find the bumper sticker, you have to find out who you are. What is special about us? What elements can bring that new spirit into our movement? One of them, for the past decade, many conservative synagogues have begun experimenting more with music and instruments because it brings life and inspiration. It helps us pray. In the temple in Jerusalem, according to Maimonides and to legend, there were 30,000 Levites and choirs singing nearby the temple. You can imagine what that must have sounded like. How powerful and alive. And it's time for us to tap into that great source of inspiration, using the richness of our traditional liturgies, that endless, bottomless well of beautiful text from all the corners of the world, and the melodies from Morocco to Eastern Europe, Central Asia. We try and give a little taste of this in our musical Friday night Shabbats. And how do we make our own Temple Har Zion community sacred? We've done a lot of that in this past year, standing through difficult times, making minyan on Zoom, being pulled by our spouse to make minyan on Zoom. Is the big new halakha question. Now do we count a Zoom minyan? How close you have to be to the laptop to count on the minyan? If you have a sleeping adult child in the room next door, does that count? The challenges have been enormous, but we pulled through. We kept our synagogue running with new programs and services. And most importantly, we stood by each other. We stood together. And we realized, faced with the circumstances of the world that we are living in, that we do need to come together and reach for something higher that binds us, that comforts us, that uplifts us, that inspires us for wholeness, for holiness. We find there is no better place to do it than in community. How valuable that is, and how powerful a realization that is. And it gives all of our communities new life and purpose. To also think and look around and realize we want to re-sanctify this community and go on journeys with other people around us right now. And knowing that all communities have to go through this every now and then, rededicating themselves, what they're about. We're now rebuilding a new website. You have to do that every few years. When it is done, it will be a wonderful vehicle and tool for our congregation to continue to reach out into the wider world. And this is what the Kol Nidre prayer was about. The Kol Nidre prayer that opens up our biggest day of the year. For years, the speculation was that it used to be that it was composed at the time of the Marranos in Spain, those who had been forced to convert after the expulsion and during the Inquisition. And it was composed to annul their vows of conversion so they could pray with the community. Now, scholars no longer believe that, but they do see that it was in that time, in that period, that the Kol Nidre gained in popularity and found its way into the hearts of all Jews. Because every year communities underwent hardship and needed to begin again. And Jews needed their communities to be open to everybody in the community and to be centers of inspiration and of gathering. And so it caught on to do the Kol Nidre, to do this ritual that wipes away the old and begins the new. So that wherever you come from, wherever you're going, whatever oaths you had to take over the past year, you can pray here. As we say, Avar Yonim, we are permitted to pray with the transgressors. And there were some rabbis in Europe at the time when the Kol Nidre became popular who even said, those who refuse to pray with known transgressors, their fast is meaningless and does not count. It is only when we re-sanctify as a group with open arms, we invite everybody all together into our space, that we find that we're all looking for acceptance and comfort and consolation and fellowship and joy. Perhaps above all, our nation so desperately needs to re-sanctify and rededicate itself. This whole period has been such a desanctification of America, of one nation indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, we pledge. We have grown so divided. There's been a desanctification of the ideal that we're all made in the image of God and can see that in each other, and that we can share an understanding that transcends beliefs. This summer, I tuned into the hearings from the January 6th committee, and it took me back to that day. And I remember that there was one report by longtime journalists who'd been covering the House for decades, and that when they were watching those videos of that day, that they were struck seeing the insurrectionists at the desks and chairs of the representatives in the House. And what was surreal about it for them is they'd been covering it for decades, had interviewed them, but they'd never come that close. Something was broken that day. Now, the founders went to great length to sanctify the nation they were establishing. And they were wise in their decision to separate church and state, but they were no stranger to the language, to the ideals, to the idea of sanctifying and of higher ideals and higher power. Right? Washington was the city on the hill, the New Zion, as the city of ancient biblical times. Jerusalem tasked them, even amidst upheaval and challenges, to bring a lofty vision of bringing godliness and peace to the nations of the world. And those values that were considered to be self-evident, that here too was a city and nation sanctified. I was in Washington, D.C. this summer, and we were walking on the mall to the Lincoln Memorial, and the statue of Lincoln frightened my children with how grave and serious it looks. We pointed out and we told them that this was where Martin Luther King Jr. marched and had a speech. How do we sanctify in an age of cancel culture? A story that I heard last year of a man who was driving by a protest on his usual road to work, and his hand was out the window, and someone at the protest thought that his fingers were making a white supremacy signal. And he had no known affiliation to any group, it was just coincidental. But by the time he got to work, his picture had gone around social media, and he'd already been fired and his reputation ruined. Or the story of a girl who was a young teenager, made a recording of a hip-hop video of herself, a young teenager, and she was recording someone else's song and repeated the racial slur, and her fellow student stored the video for several years until they were seniors, and then sent it to the college where she had received a scholarship several years later, and they in turn immediately canceled the scholarship. Or those who would cancel and destroy the careers of sportsmen and women because they proclaimed different beliefs. Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., they did not seek to cancel those who believed differently. They stood by their vision, and they reached out as far as they could to include everyone in it. They had a unitive vision. And that is what galvanized this nation when MLK invoked the dream of Isaiah, of the wolf lying down with the lamb, the dreams of children of all races playing with each other, of the dream of making this world a little bit closer to the world that God intended. Not a world where casting stones is the national sport. My daughter Shalva entered kindergarten in August, and she's having already to learn the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 20 years after 9/11, we are reminded that we still need to defend our nation. Now from internal forces, not external, we need to re-sanctify. In our world, our planet, over the summer it feels as though we have gone from fearing that our relationship to the planet was suffering and leading us to a worrying future, to knowing and witnessing that the change is already upon us. Our ancient tradition has always taught to revere and protect the earth, but over the course of centuries and millennia, we've lost that sense of holiness in our relationship with the planet. And now we're waking up to it, but we're at a loss. We'll be discovering over the years ahead how able we are to re-sanctify that relationship and to do what it says at the beginning of the book of Genesis. God creates human beings to tend the garden, and he gives Adam and Eve the power to name all the animals. And their job is to live in harmony with the garden. And this is our tradition's vision of what our relationship should be with our planet, to see ourselves as gardeners and tenders of the planet, to integrate the value of sustaining our life here in the long term for all life. Yom Kippur is about re-sanctifying all of those relationships. and also about finding the faith that we can succeed in this labor of re-sanctification, and the courage that we all need to take the necessary steps to bring it about, to rededicate, to bring to fruition on the individual, familial, communal, national, and global levels of our lives. The tools for achieving it are very clear. We consciously let go of the negative aspects of our past. We let go of what was not working, what was holding us back. We let it all wash away. Kol Nidre. And then we take a good look and we think, how should I start again? How do I rededicate that part or that part or that part? How can I play my part in the re-sanctification of my life, in my family's life, my nation's life, my planet? And then we commit before the heavenly tribunal and the earthly tribunal to new oaths and new pledges and new renunciations and promises. And this is how we begin the holiest day of the year. We rededicate ourselves, we realign with our deepest values, and we trust that we will receive divine help in this difficult but sacred task. Because after all, as we'll be saying in a few minutes, Haneshama alach v'aguf po'alach, the soul is yours, the body is your handiwork. This night we stand before the Eternal One, all of us together, and we ask to be shown how to do it, how to re-sanctify all of our existence. We pray for inspiration, for new oaths that will keep better, that we will be able to fulfill fuller, and that will take us one step closer to where we need to be. And we seek out the faith that our re-sanctification is possible at every one of those levels. As has happened infinite times over the history of the great movements of humanity and of the Jewish people. We can align with our deepest values and then return to the world alive with their power to bring our vows and aspirations to fruition in the days and the weeks and the months ahead. Good Yom Tov, Gmar Tov. We turn to page 223. This is the beginning of our Slichot service. Our Slichot service is the second part of the Kol Nidre service. We open our hearts to the power of this evening, and we recognize that we're all fallible. We recognize it to ourselves, to others, to God, to say, Slicha, I am sorry. We begin with Yale Tachnunenu, one of the most beautiful prayers in all of our liturgy, page 223.
Yale Tachnunenu me'erev ve'yavo shavatenu miboker ve'yerae rinunenu ve'yerae rinunenu ararev Yale Yale kolenu me'erev v'yavo v'yavo tzidkatenu miboker v'yerae pidyonenu v'yerae pidyonenu v'yerae pidyonenu ad arev. Yale, yale, inuyenu me'erev, v'yavo, v'yavo, selichateinu miboker, v'yira'e nakatenu, v'yira'e nakatenu, v'yira'e nakatenu, ad arev.
On the left-hand side, responsively, may our supplications rise up at evening, our pleas arrive with the dawn, our songs transform the dusk. May our suffering rise up at evening, our forgiveness arrive with the dawn, our purity transform the dusk.
Yale, yale, enkatenu me'erev, v'yavo, v'yavo, elecha miboker, v'yira'e eleinu, v'yira'e eleinu, v'yira'e eleinu, ad arev.
Turn to page 224, the first third of the page responsively. On the left-hand side, all flesh comes to you, you who hear prayer. They shall come to bow down before you, Adonai, and they will pay honor to your name. Let us greet God with thanks and sing songs of praise. In God's hand is every living soul and the breath of all human flesh. We turn to page 225, Haneshama Malach, the soul of our Slichot liturgy. The soul is yours, the body is your handiwork. And Judaism teaches this idea of body and soul. We're supposed to take care of our bodies, but the neshama, the soul, we are supposed to give over to God. He made the body a part of our life, part of the world. But the neshama is supposed to be for God, and we live in that balance. Page 225 at the top of the page.
Anisham malach v'yaguv polach chusa malach anisham malach v'yaguv polach chusa Hanesham malach v'yaguv shelach Adonai oseh leman shemecha atanu al shimcha Adonai aseh leman shemecha ba'avur kevod shimcha ki el chanun v'rachum shemecha leman shimcha Adonai v'salachta lavonenu ki rav.
Second half of the page in the English responsively. We came before you relying on who you are. You are known as gracious, compassionate God. Your way is to be patient with sinners, not only with the righteous. That is the source of our praise for you. Grant relief to this driven leaf. Have compassion on that which is but dust and ashes. We turn to page 226, the first of our recitations of the 13 attributes of compassion, the Shlosh Esrei Midot Rachamim. We do this 3 times in every one of our Slichot services. And our tradition teaches that the world was created with Midat Hadin, with the attribute of judgment. But the world could not stand of such severe judgment. So God brought in the attribute of Rachamim, Midat HaRachamim, the attribute of compassion, to keep everything in balance. And so compassion becomes how God is expressed in this world. And this prayer is a way of reminding us of that truth, of accessing that place of compassion. We turn to page 226 on the left-hand side, the middle paragraph, responsively. We approach your presence with supplication and prayer and with the words revealed to Moses, the humble one, long ago. About the day God descended in a cloud, overlooked sin, blot out guilt, as on the day God stood before him, hear our cry, attend to our plea, as on the day he called the name Adonai.
Vayavor Adonai al panav vayikra Adonai Adonai el rachum v'chanun erech hapayim v'rav chesed Yotzer chesed la'alafim Nosei avon v'afesha V'chata V'salachta lavoneinu ulechatatienu unechaletanu selachnanu avinu kichatanu nechalanu malkeinu kifashanu ki ata Adonai tov v'salach V'rav chesed lechol korecha.
We turn to Kihinek HaChomer. We're on page 227, one of the great piyutim of the high holy days, about the fleeting and temporary nature of life. We're just clay in the hands of the potter, iron in the hands of the ironsmith, silver in the hands of the smelter. But also we are not the ones in control. There is a higher power at work. Page 227.
Kihinek HaChomer be'ad hayotzer Birtzoto marchiv uvirtzoto mekatzer Kein anachnu be'yadcha chesed notzer Kein anachnu biyadcha chesed notzer La brit habet La brit habet La brit habet ve'al tefen la yetzer Kinek ha'even be'ad hamsatet Birtzoto ches uvirtzoto mechatet כן אנחנו בידך מחיי ומתת. כן אנחנו בידך מחיי ומתת. להברית להברית הבית, להברית להברית הבית, להברית הבית, ועל תפן ליצר.
We turn to the left-hand side, or 3 paragraphs down, responsively, as iron in the hand of the blacksmith who forges or withdraws it at will, so are we in your hand, support of the poor. As the helm in the hand of the sailor who holds the course or abandons it at will, so are we in your hand, good and forgiving God. As glass in the hands of the glazier who shapes or melts it at will, so are we in your hand, pardoner of sin and transgression. As cloth in the hand of the draper who drapes or twists it at will, so are we in your hand, righteous God.
הנה ככסף ביד הצורף, ברצותו משגשג וברצותו מצרף. כן אנחנו בידך ממציא למזור טרף. כן אנחנו בידך ממציא למזור טרף. לברית לברית הבית, לברית לברית הבית, לברית הבית, ועל תפן ליצר.
Turn to page 229 on the right-hand side.
אל מלך יושב על כיסא רחמים, מתנחג בחסידות, מוחל עוונות עמו. מעביר ראשון ראשון, מרבה מחילה לחטאים, וסליחה לפושעים, וסליחה לפושעים, וסליחה לפושעים, עושה צדקות עם כל בשר, והרוח לא חרתם תגמול, לא חרתם תגמול, לא חרתם, לא חרתם תגמול.
Join me in the English, the second and third paragraph together on the left-hand side of page 229. God, you taught us how to recite the 13 attributes of your name. Remember the promise implied in these 13 attributes, which you first revealed to Moses, the humble one. As it is written, God descended in a cloud and stood beside him, and he called the name Adonai. And Adonai passed before him and called, Adonai, Adonai, God, merciful and compassionate, patient, abounding in love and faithfulness, assuring love for thousands of generations, forgiving iniquity, transgression, and sin, and granting pardon.
ויעבור אדוני על פניו ויקרא אדוני אדוני אל רחום וחנון ערך אפיים ורב חסד ואמת, נוצר חסד לאלפים, נושא עוון ופשע, וחטא ונקה. וסלחת לעווננו ולחטאתנו ונחלתנו. סלח לנו אבינו כי חטאנו, מחל לנו מלכנו כי פשענו. כי אתה אדוני טוב וסלח, ורב חסד לכל קוראיך.
Please join me in the English, the second half of page 231. A piyut. Adonai, where shall I find you? High and hidden is your place, and where shall I not find you? The world is full of your glory. I sought your closeness, I called to you with all my heart, and going out to meet you, I found you coming toward me. Page 232, our last repetition of the 13 attributes. Second paragraph in the Hebrew, Vayavor Adonai al panav.
ויעבור אדוני על פניו ויקרא אדוני אדוני אל רחום וחנון ערך אפיים ורב חסד ואמת נוצר חסד לאלפים נושא עוון ופשע וחטא ונקה וסלחת לעווננו לחטאתנו ונחלתנו סלח לנו אבינו כי חטאנו מחל לנו מלכנו כי פשענו כי אתה אדוני טוב וסלח ורב חסד לכל קוראיך.
Please rise. We turn to the Shema Kolenu as we open the Ark on page 233. On this night we say, Shema Kolenu, hear our voice. We believe someone is listening. We believe our prayers will be heard. Page 233, the second paragraph.
Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu Chus Virachem Aleinu V'kabel ברחמים וברצון את תפילתנו. Please join in the English. Hear our voice, Adonai, our God. Hear our voice, Adonai. Be kind and have compassion for us. Willingly accept our prayer. Turn us toward you, Adonai, and we will return to you. Turn us toward you. Make our days seem fresh as they once were. Do not cast us away from you. Take not your holy presence from us. Hear our voice, Adonai, our God. Hear our voice, Adonai. Be kind and have compassion for us. lovingly accept our prayer.
Responsively, 3 paragraphs down. Do not abandon us, Adonai our God. Do not distance yourself from us. Hear our words, Adonai, and consider our innermost thoughts. It is for you we wait. Surely you will respond, Adonai our God.
Eloheinu ve'Eloi avotenu ve'imotenu selach lanu mechal lanu kaper lanu.
Please be seated. Page 234.
Ki anu amecha v'ata Eloheinu anu vanecha v'ata avinu anu avadecha v'ata Adonenu anu kahalecha v'ata chelkeinu anu nachalatecha v'ata goraleinu anu tzonecha v'ata roeinu anu charmecha v'ata notereinu anu feulatecha v'ata yotzereinu anu rayatecha v'ata dodeinu anu segulatecha v'ata kroveinu anu amecha v'ata malkeinu anu ma'amirecha v'ata ma'amireinu.
3 paragraphs down together. We are insolent. You are gracious and compassionate. We are obstinate. You are patient. We are sinful. You are merciful. Our days are a passing shadow, but you are the Holy One who truly is for time without end.
Eloheinu ve'Eloi avotenu tavo lifanecha tefilatenu ve'al titahalam mitechinatenu she'ein anachnu azefanim ukeshe oref lomar lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu tzadikim anachnu velo atratanu aval anachnu chatanu.
We turn to page 235, our Shamanus story that every year Rebbe Levi Yitzchak Berdichev would lead the congregation in Kol Nidre. One year he stopped his leading of the service and he looked up to the heavens and he said, Ribono Shel Olam, Master of the universe, if we didn't sin so much, where would you hear such beautiful melodies? Page 235.
Ay 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 Ashamnu
Ashamnu
Bagadnu
Bagadnu,
גזלנו,
Gazalnu,
דיברנו דופי.
Dibarnu Dofi,
Ay, 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 ay. Avinu,
Evinu,
Behirshanu,
Irshanu,
Zadnu,
Zanu,
Chamasnu,
Hamasnu,
Tafalnu Sheker,
Tafalnu Sheker,
Yatznu Ra,
Yatsnua,
Kizavnu,
Kizavnu,
Latznu,
Latsnu,
Maradnu,
Maratnu,
Niatznu.
Yatsnu,
Ay, 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 ay. Sararnu,
Sararnu,
Avinu,
Avinu,
Pashanu,
Pashanu,
Sararnu,
Yoranu,
Kishinu Oref,
Ishinu Oe,
Rajadu,
Ashanu,
Shiradnu,
Shichatnu,
Tiavnu,
Kiavnu,
Tainu,
Tainu,
Titanu.
Titan.
Ay, 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 ay.
We have turned from your goodly laws and commandments, but it has not profited us. Surely you are in the right with respect to all that comes upon us. For you have acted faithfully, but we have been in the wrong. Join me for the last paragraph of page 236. You know the mysteries of the universe, the deepest secrets of everyone alive. You probe our innermost depths, you examine our thoughts and feelings. Nothing escapes you, nothing is secret from you. Therefore, may it be your will, our God and God of our ancestors, to forgive us for all our sins, to pardon us for all our iniquities, and to grant atonements for all our transgressions. We turn to our al-chetz. This is our list that we go through every year of all of our sins and transgressions. One way to look at it is as an opportunity for self-examination, to examine ourselves and to think about our year. What went wrong? What went right? Who were we amidst everything that happened around us? What was our part? What can we do different next year? Where can we be forgiving of ourselves? What did we do right? And I always like to add this alternative list of al-chetz from Rabbi Avi Weiss, because it wasn't all bad. We have loved, we have blessed, we have grown, we have spoken positively, we have raised up, we have shown compassion, we have acted enthusiastically, we have been empathetic, we have cultivated truth, we have given good advice, we have respected, we have learned, we have forgiven, we have comforted, we have been creative, we have stirred, we have been spiritual activists, we have been just, we have longed for Israel, we have been merciful, we have given full effort, we have supported, we have contributed, we have repaired. We turn to page 237 for our al-chetz.
כל חטא שחטאנו לפניך באונס וברצון.
On the left-hand side, responsively, we have sinned against you unwillingly and willingly. We have sinned against you thoughtlessly. We have sinned against you through sexual immorality. We have sinned against you knowingly and deceitfully. We have sinned against you by defrauding others. We have sinned against you through forbidden trysts. We have sinned against you by scorning parents and teachers. We have sinned against you by resorting to violence. We have sinned against you through foul speech. We have sinned against you through pursuing the impulse to evil. Together, for all these sins, forgiving God, forgive us, pardon us, and grant us atonement.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך ביצר הרע, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך ביודעים ובלא יודעים, ועל כולם אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, קבל לנו. מלכי שחטאנו לפניך, בכחש ובכזב, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך, בכפר שוחד, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך, בלצון, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך, בלשון הרע, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך, במסע ובמתן, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך, באכול ובמשתה, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך, בנשך ובמרבית, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך, בנטיית גרון, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך, בשיח שפתותינו, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך, בסקור עין, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך, בעיניים רמות, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך, בעזות מצח, ועל כולם אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, קבל לנו.
The left-hand side, we have sinned against you by throwing off all restraint. We have sinned against you by plotting against others. We have sinned against you through superficiality. We have sinned against you by rushing to do evil. We have sinned against you through empty promises. We have sinned against you by betraying trust. Together, for all these sins, forgiving God, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement.
ועל כולם אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, קבל לנו.
We turn to page 240. In the middle of the page, the piyut, Hu Ya'anenu, he will answer us.
מי שענה לאברהם אבינו בהר המוריה, הו יעננו. מי שענה ליצחק בנום, כשנעקד על גב המזבח, הו יעננו. מי שענה ליעקב בבית יעננו מי שענה ליוסף בבית הסורים הוא יעננו.
May the one who answered Sarah pass the time of her youth. Hu Yanenu. Abraham on Mount Moriah. Hu Yanenu. Isaac their son bound on the altar. Hu Yanenu. Rebekah their son struggled within her. Hu Yanenu. Jacob of Bethel. Hu Yanenu. Leah in her loneliness. Hu Yanenu. Rachel desperate for a child. Hu Yanenu. Joseph abandoned in prison. Hu Yanenu. The Hebrew midwives that they stood at the birthing place, Hu Yanenu. Yocheved having faith on the bank of the Nile, Hu Yanenu. The people Israel on the shores of the sea, Hu Yanenu. Moses standing on the slopes of Sinai, Hu Yanenu. Miriam with her well of water, Hu Yanenu. Aaron offering incense to God, Hu Yanenu. Pinchas seeking his place above the crowd, Hu Yanenu. The daughters of Tzolofchad standing their ground, Hu Yanenu. And those who are righteous, upright, decent, and compassionate, answer us, Hu Ya'anenu. Please rise. We turn to page 43, Avinu Malkeinu. We open the Ark, our Father, our Sovereign.
Avinu Malkeinu Chatanu lefanecha Avinu Malkeinu Ein lanu melech elata.
On the left-hand side, the first half of the page. Avinu Malkeinu, we have sinned in your presence. Avinu Malkeinu, act towards us kindly in accord with your name. Avinu Malkeinu, annul every harsh decree against us. Avinu Malkeinu, frustrate the plottings of our enemies. Avinu Malkeinu, rid your covenanted people of disease, war, hunger, captivity, and destruction. Avinu Malkeinu, do not look toward our sins and transgressions, blot them out. Avinu Malkeinu, send complete healing to the sick among your people. Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us for good in the book of life. Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of sustenance. Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of forgiveness.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol aleinu, V'yalol aleinu, V'tapenu. Avinu Malkeinu, ein lanu melech elata. Avinu Malkeinu, kabel berachamim uveratzon et tefilatenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, korvenu besefer chaim tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, chodesh yesh aleinu shana tova. Top of the next page. Avinu malkeinu, Honeinu vaneinu. Avinu malkeinu, Honeinu vaneinu, Ki ein banu masim. Asemanu, tzedaka v'chesed. Asemanu tzedaka v'chesed ve'oshienu. Avinu malkeinu, choneinu vaneinu. Avinu malkeinu, choneinu vaneinu, ki en banu masim. Asemanu, tzedaka v'chesed. Asemanu, tzedaka v'chesed, ve'oshienu.
Please be seated. Kaddish Shalem, the second half of the page.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemehera haba, amen. Ve'alima divra kirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon, u'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, v'gahala u'vizman kariv, v'yemeru, amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevorach, li'olam olol me'almai, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה להם בכל מרחתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמה ויאמרו אמן. תתקבל צלותיהון ובאותיהון דכל ישראל קודם אבוהון דבשמיה ויאמרו אמן. יש למה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Please rise for Aleinu, page 246.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כאויי ארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל עמונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אין עוד, אין עוד, אין עוד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, Bayom ahu yeh Adonai echad ushmo echad ushmo echad ushmo echad ushmo echad.
Please be seated. We turn to our mourner's Kaddish on page 247, our Kadishatum. Grant that the memories of those who have gone before us be a source of strength for me and for every one of the house of Israel. May the souls of our departed find peace in your sheltering care. May we all be blessed with peace, tranquility, and the fullness of life. If you are observing a yahrzeit or in mourning, please rise and join me in the words of our Kaddish. Yitkadal ve'yitkadash shomei rabba.
Amen.
Ve'alma divra kirute ve'yamlich machute. B'chayechon v'yomechon u'b'chaye dechol beit Yisrael bagala u'vizman kariv ve'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevorach le'olam u'almei almaya. Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitba'ar ve'yitchumam ve'yitnaseh. Vitadar, vitale, vitalal, shemei de kudesha, brichu. Le'ela, le'ela, minkol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma ve'imru. Amen. Yehi shlam araba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen. We now have our last video greetings of the evening. Eric and Debbie Fogel, the Zmora family, and Judy and Ed Sachs.
Hello, Har Zion. Shana Tova. Have a sweet year.
Have a sweet year.
From Eric and Debbie Fogel.
This is the Zmora family. We want to wish a Shana Tova and Gmar Chatima Tova to all of our friends and family in the West Suburban Temple Har Zion community.
Hi, this is Ed Sachs.
And Judy Sachs.
Wishing our friends at Har Zion best wishes for the new year. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
We'll now have announcements from our president, Julie Geldner.
I think I spoke enough earlier. So the announcement is I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow morning. Services start at 8:45. Thank you and have an easy fast.
We turn to the Psalm for the season. We're on page 248. Please join me on the left-hand side as we read in English all the way to the red transliteration. A Psalm of David. Adonai is my light and my help. Whom shall I fear? Adonai is the stronghold of my life. Whom shall I dread? When evil people assail me to devour my flesh, it is they, my enemies, and those who besiege me, who stumble and fall. Should an armed camp be arrayed against me, my heart would show no fear. Should they war against me, of this I would be sure. One thing I ask of Adonai, this I seek, to dwell in the house of God all the days of my life, to behold God's beauty and visit in God's sanctuary.
Achad sha'alti met Adonai, ota avakesh. Achad sha'alti met Adonai, ota avakesh. Shivti bevet Adonai, כל ימי חיי, לחזות בנועם בנועם אדוני, ולבקר בהיכלו. לחזות בנועם בנועם אדוני, ולבקר בהיכלו. Ave el חזק ויאמץ ליבך וקווה אל אדוני.
Yigdal, page 250.
יגדל אלוהים חי וישתבח, נמצא בעיני תל מציאותו, אחד ואין יחיד כייחודו, נעלם וגם אין סוף לאחדותו. אין לו דמות הגוף ואינו גוף, לא נערוך אליו קדושתו. קדמון לכל דבר אשר נברא, ראשון ואין ראשית לרעותו. הינו אדון עולם לכל נוצר, יורה גדולתו ומלכותו. שפע נבואתו נתנו אל אנשי סגולתו ותפארתו. לא קם בישראל כמו שעוד נביא ומביט את אמונתו. תורת אמת נתן לעמו אל, על יד נביאו נאמן ביתו. לא יחליף האל ולא ימיר דתו לעולמים לזולתו. צופה ויודע סתרנו, מביט לסוף דבר בקדמתו. גומל לאיש חסד כמפעלו, נותן לרש רע כרשעתו. יסלח לקץ ימין משיחנו, לפדות מחכה קץ ישועתו. מתים יחייל ברוב חסדו, ברוך עדי עד שם תהילתו. מתים יחייל ברוב חסדו, ברוך עדי עד שם תהילתו.
Please rise for our concluding bracha. Kadosh Baruch Hu, Holy One, blessed be He. On this cold Nidre night, hear our prayers. May we re-sanctify our lives and the lives of our families, of our people, of our divided nation, of our planet in distress, in love and joy and peace. And let us say, Amen.
יברכך אדוני וישמרך.
Adonai bless and protect you.
יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונך.
May Adonai's countenance shine upon you and grant you kindness.
יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך שלום.
May Adonai's countenance be lifted towards you and grant you peace. Good Yontiv, Gemar Tov. See you tomorrow.
Good Yontiv.
Gmar Chatima Tova. Good Yontiv for everyone.
Gmar Chatima Tova. And everyone else. There's the sitters.
Good Yom Tov from Fran and Paul.
Good Yom Tov to you, to all of you. For a good year, good fast.